Welcome to Pixel Pizza,
Did she say pizza?
your ultimate source for chiptunes, video game talk, and pepperoni. Delivered to you from Los Angeles and into the digital cyberspace of the 2020s.
Pizza power!
That's right, one super giant pizza.
I want a large, thick crust with double cheese, ham, pepperoni.
Hey, where's my pizza?
Pizza time.
Hello, and welcome back to Pixel Pizza. That is right, we are back again, and we are very excited to be talking to this week's guest. So today we are going to be speaking with a Mr. Jake Innes. That is right. Longtime viewers, listeners may know that at the beginning of this podcast, when it started up the series, we got a shout out from this guy, this lovely guy. And he's been a longtime supporter of the show, longtime influence on the show since the radio days back at Emerson. That is right, because he is responsible for the long-running, the iconic, the grandfather of video game podcasts. That is right. We are talking about the Gaming Cult podcast, which recently came to an end. And so we're going to be talking with him about a little bit of a postmortem about the Gaming Cult podcast, what it did, what influence it left, lots of cool stuff, and where he is now. So hope you're looking forward to it. Jake Innes, of course, also a musician, accomplished DJ Innes in the footwork scene. So we are going to be playing some of his music. And we're going to be starting off with the track Awakening featuring Crossfire, which you may recognize from a certain video game. But of course, it's got the classic DJ Innes spin on it. So enjoy that one, and we'll see you soon. All right, welcome back to Pixel Pizza. You just listened to Awakening featuring Crossfire by DJ Ennis, the one, the only, who happens to be sitting right across from me over Zoom in rainy Sydney, Australia.
It's true. It is not currently
And
sunny.
no, unfortunately. But it will be soon, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me, Jared. Pixel
Yeah,
Pizza.
Absolutely. Yes, a pleasure.
Back once again.
Always.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jake Ennis, DJ Ennis, head of DJs. Gaming Cult podcast. Well, just Gaming Cult now, I guess. I've got to try and not be on. I don't think I've ever not been on in all my life because I've done radio since I was 12, literally. So
that's what I want to get into. Let's start with that.
Do I have a not radio voice at this point? I don't think I ever switch it off, even in real life. I just sound like Casey Kasem. No, I don't sound like Casey Kasem, but I might as well sound.
Yoinks! I want to hear about your, like doing radio since you were 12. I think that's the coolest thing.
It's weird, right? Like, I did it. I did it through my high school. I was born in London, but I grew up in Australia, sort of the lower north shore of Sydney, a place called Davidson, which is Garigal country there for the traditional landowners. Yeah, so I kind of grew up in the middle of a national park. Well, I moved there when I was about 4 from London. And I sort of, lived in the national park kind of next to a cemetery.
Yeah. Ooh, wow.
So I spent a lot of my early years like growing up in the cemetery, growing up all in the cemetery, shaking my booty on graves. Oh god, people aren't going to remember that reference. Only
yes.
It was a Dead Wrong Teens booty shaking all in the cemetery.
Yeah, booty all up in the cemetery.
It's a really really old YouTube relic New Orleans bounce video. A bunch of kids just twerking on graves in a video. Yeah. In bounce culture, everyone's doing it. It's a cultural thing, but not up in the cemetery. That's dead wrong. No. So the first year of high school, which is grade 7, we basically have primary school in Australia, elementary school, kindergarten to 6, and then we have high school, which is 7 to 12. We don't have middle school or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
So my first year of high school, 7th grade, I started doing community radio. And this was 1996. It could have also been 8th grade. It was somewhere between that. So 96, 97. I was offered through one of my teachers, Mrs. Kavanagh, to do a local, do community radio, basically. Me and a friend of mine, James Collins, who I started that off with. 96. And they just, it's not really allowed to be done anymore, but they just kind of let 2 12-year-olds live on the air, left to their own devices at 4 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. It was a drive time show. Wow. And the kids that had it before us from Davidson High, I don't know if I mentioned that, that's my high school that I went to, had the show before us, and it was called House Nation. And I imagine they'd had it since like 1990 or 92 or whatever, and they named it after, the track House Nation by the Housemaster Boys. What I'm trying to say is we just kept the name because why not?
Sure.
And we just played all kinds of music.
It wasn't just house music?
No, it wasn't just house music. So we were playing everything from like what James wanted to play, which was a lot of Ben Folds 5 and some pop music, and we were all playing skater punk because that's what you'll listen to back then. Basically, just think of like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater
Oh,
1 to 3 uh, albums, and you get the kind of idea. And yeah, a lot of jungle as well, like early drum and bass, 94 era jungle to be specific.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that's the stuff that made me want to make music. Growing up in a musical family, on my dad's side of the family. Well, my mum used to be a musician too, in a band and stuff. But my dad's family, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, all jazz musicians going back to the 40s in Scotland.
That's so
Scotland.
cool. I had no idea.
To cut forward, how many years? 25 years, 26 years. No, 25 years. I started doing the show again when I moved back here. And in 2020, I decided to go back to Radio Northern Beaches, which was the station that I started at when I was 12. And yeah, God, when I started out, it was literally, I think it was at Narrabeen Sports High School, and the radio station, which had started around 1980, it was literally this shed, this tin shed that used to be the toilets or something. It used to be the girls' toilets at some sports high school, and they converted it into a radio station in like 1979. And all the equipment is still the same equipment that's used today.
And it holds
does,
up.
Yeah. It's a fully analog broadcast signal still today. Because what I was about to say, when I moved back, I rejoined the station because I started doing the show again in 2020, and I decided to bring back House Nation because I thought, why not?
Did anyone remember it?
Yeah, actually, like a lot of the people there, a lot of the hosts there. It's a community station, part of a co-op, so it's all fully volunteer work. To a degree of which is not seen much these days. We even own our own transmitter pole. So I thought, I could just bring back House Nation. And I could still have it be a misnomer. I could still play all kinds of music. But in the last 25 years, it's kind of come full circle because I've become part of Chicago's house music culture and ghetto house and footwork and juke culture as well, being a member of Chicago's ghetto DJs. And now I'm getting all these house music all the way through to ghetto house and footwork legends coming on to do guest mixes on House Nation 25 years later. with a show that began, that we took over, that we didn't even know the meaning of the word for when we first started.
So at what point did you realize this was something that you wanted to integrate your love of video games into?
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? The weirdest thing is that after going through DJing in clubs, to doing more to going to university in 2005, I wasn't really making a lot of music from around 2010, which is when I came out as a gay man, at 27, which was quite late to come out. And then I came out again 6 months later as a bisexual. Actually, I was non-binary as well for the first 35 years of my life. But yeah, I wasn't really making much music because I'd kind of stopped and left everything that I was doing when I came out because it was such a big thing. And I'm like, oh, I guess I sort of start again now. And, it's anyone out there knows it's a difficult thing. And do it. It is hard, but do it. But yeah, you get to 2012 and I had my friend Martin, which I knew through music and also through I was watching a lot of videos and really involved, or at least just I was obsessively collecting video games at that point, like a lot of retro stuff. I had a Neo Geo AES, and it got to a hoarding stage, but I had a massive retro collection, and I was very, very active and involved in the YouTube game collecting community then, watching people like Pete Dorr and
Oh yeah, Game Chasers.
the Game Chasers, yeah, when they started. But I think that was even, I'm trying to think, when the Game Chasers started, I used to talk to them when they first started out.
Oh,
But
no kidding.
it was probably before the Game Chasers, because what influenced me a lot for starting the podcast, and me and Martin both really being into game collecting and also the YouTube game collecting community. Well, one, the Screw Attack podcast, Side Scrollers. I listened to that a lot, and I use that as a reference point because that was one of the first podcasts I heard with music in the background of it. And it was very, very low in the mix, and it was just all video game music, extremely low in the mix. But that was the first podcast I heard that had soundtracked itself. And the All Gen Gamers podcast, which started out of the YouTube game collecting scene, and it was Pete Dorr, John Gamester81, Happy Console Gamer from Canada.
Oh, Johnny, I love him.
Yep, and Jason Heine as well.
Right.
Happy Console Gamer left off later. I still watch Happy Console Gamer's videos.
Me too, every Sunday.
Yeah, his stuff is great.
He just had a kid.
Oh, did he really? Hey, congratulations to Happy Console Gamer. Yeah, I loved the All Gen Gamers podcast, and especially with what Jason Heine was doing with it. With I think his channel's now called Heine House. And yeah, it's a game collecting channel, but he's also a musician too, and a drummer. He makes jungle, actually. He makes drum and bass, really like old school 96 era kind of drum and bass. And it sounds awesome. But he started like working a soundboard into that show as like a comedic device, and he would bring these characters in, like this whale that they will talk to and interact with. Yeah, oh god, so many of, like, there were people out in Japan as well. Luke Morse, Luke Morse one. That was another channel that I watched greatly, and Charge Back Forward in Canada as well, who we actually had on as guests in 2012, I want to say, on Gaming Cult Podcast. Yeah, and like people from the UK, like Future Matt 5, who we had on like episode 4 of Gaming Cult. He was our first guest ever, actually. Yeah, so those two shows, and I would say also David Firth, who's known for Salad Fingers and all of his animation work, Burnt Face Man, or all that kind of stuff. Fat Pie, the Fat Pie podcast, Waller FM, which started in 2008, which was basically a fake radio station in like Northern England. Because they lived in David Firth and Christian Pickup, aka Crust Pickup, was they both lived in Hull, which is like the north of England, and that the production value on that was really inspirational to me, and it's still a really funny show, Waller FM. They still kind of do it now. I recommend going back and listening to Waller FM, especially the original episodes from the 2008 and the episodes now, all the live stuff they did. It's fantastic. It still holds up so well. It's very British humor, especially northern British humor. But God, it's so funny. Those three shows were the biggest influence on what started Gaming Cult, which was me and Martin wanting to talk about obscure. It definitely didn't start as a comedy podcast. It started off with me and Martin, a friend of mine in Sweden, wanting to talk about obscure Japanese imports and just obscure games in general and up-to-date stuff as well.
You guys
Yeah.
were the first people to really talk about Yakuza and be like big fans of that series. It wasn't until like maybe 5 years ago that I feel like the rest of the Western world caught on to how good those
Oh,
were.
that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, shouts out to Deacon Ross as well, who actually took to the podcast really quickly. He runs the fight. He runs the site. Excuse me, yakuzafan.com. Yeah, no, we just talked about stuff, the niche stuff that we were into, and that we were collecting / hoarding at the time. I don't think I ever played like 80% of my video game collection at that time until I sold it all in 2017. But yeah, it started off as that, quite kind of dry, I'd say. Not dry, but like, yeah, just talking about obscure games. And then we got Matt in as a guest, who was fun. And then I think I asked Garrett Hunter from Mega 64 on Facebook. I've also been a fan of Mega 64 since they first started putting videos on their website in 2004 or whenever that was. I wasn't through the Something Awful community. I was on I think it was, what was it? The Friends Society, used to be known as F Society. .ca. It was like Newgrounds Flash kind of stuff, like late 90s, early 2000s, edgy Newgrounds Flash stuff from that era. Yeah, definitely grew up with Newgrounds and stickdeath.com and all that kind of stuff. A lot of Internet 1.0 stuff. I feel like a lot of that, you tell a lot of these stories from Internet 1.0 years, and it's like, it feels like mythological at this point because nothing was really documented from like before 96, 97.
Did you play the game Hypnospace Outlaw?
Is that a recent game? I feel like I know that title.
It came out a couple years ago. I absolutely love it. It's like a recreation of Web 1.0.
Oh.
And you have to like complete these objectives going through like GeoCities websites.
It's like its own OS, isn't it?
Forums.
Right, yeah. It's even its own OS, and like the plot device is based around security AI and all that kind of thing. I didn't get very far in it, but oh my goodness, like I've played it on my PS5. I guess it's a PS4 game, or maybe it is a PS5 port. No, I started playing that and it was like fantastic. It's like, I mean, you could be reductive and say that it's vaporwave the game, but like it's. So I go off on tangents so quickly, Jared. I'm sorry.
I noticed a little bit,
but that's kind of what started to work its way into Gaming Cult podcast as well. So I think that's what inspired us to start the podcast and what it grew into, bringing in. Yeah, Garrett joined after being a guest on 2 episodes back to back, and then Eric joined, and then Brian Abishakra joined. Yeah, Eric Badur, pardon me. Garrett Hunter joined, Eric Badur joined, who now works for Rooster Teeth, as a lot of you will know,
right.
And Brian Abishakra. Also part of Mega 64 and the Big Dogs, and KLBR, King Lord Brian Radio. Yes, that's right.
Oh, I just started watching. He's doing a great job with that.
Yes. Shouts out to my boy Brian. I love you so much. And I even got my brother and sister involved in it as well. I think that was the big turning point when Zach got involved to fill in for Martin for a couple of episodes from episode 10.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially when Zach joined and he started talking about these bizarre dating sim games that he'd be playing, like Heartful Boyfriend,
right?
Couple of Shoujo, like we're talking real 2012 era meme games here. But we actually talked about Heartful Boyfriend before the rest of the world knew about it. I could definitely.
Yeah, that was the first time I heard of it.
It just that's where it really took a turn when Zach joined, who was like 17, 18. He just turned 18. This is my
Really?
younger
Wow.
brother, my half brother, and Ruby, my younger half sister as well, also joined a bit later on in 2013 as well. But none of us were ready for Zach coming on the show. Like me, Garrett, Martin, Eric, Brian, none of us were. And it just went in this bizarre direction, and we started forming our own vibe, I guess. Just our own.
Very, very strong identity. Very surreal.
Yeah, it became straight up Dada at certain points, like Dadaism. Like it would just be all of us would just screaming into it. Especially like Cody joined later as well. Cody Brown, last Cody. He joined later on after being a guest on an episode in 2012. I met Cody through actually the first episode of Poorly Played stream, which Garrett was doing.
Wow, the very
amazing
first.
Sense of humor, very unique sense of humor, Cody. Yeah, but just absolutely chaotic, like amazing like energy, and he definitely brought a lot to the show as well in 2013 and 2014. It just became absolute Dada at points. It would just be like 10 people screaming into a microphone. The show is also like this. It just goes on just like me. I guess it's a reflection of me in some way. I past recording the show, I do everything like scoring it and editing it, not just editing to take out Skype lag, but editing for like comedic timing and things like that. But I just thought a thing that slowly crept in as well that made Gaming Cult what it was, and it was definitely Ren and Stimpy, and I guess side scrollers as well on that basic technical level, but definitely Ren and Stimpy that influenced me putting in like a public domain classical music behind people just talking about the most absurd things, that definitely came from Ren and Stimpy.
Were there ever any like bits or ideas that when you were editing you had to cut out because they were just too weird?
Yes. Plenty of stuff hit the cutting room floor.
Wow.
But like, yeah, no, yes and no. Just, I have to, just going back and remembering, because I would just barge these 14-hour editing sessions. And, I'm an artist. I've become more comfortable with calling myself an artist because that's what I've been for 25 years, and it's all
Absolutely.
Like Gaming Cult became an artistic project for me. I did start overproducing the hell out of it because it was funny to me to overproduce a podcast, which people didn't do. Like, people did not put production value to podcasts outside of Waller FM, which was also, it was beyond a podcast. I'd say that was more of a show. But that was my point of reference for the massive overproduction. But I just thought, and it happened gradually too, but just the massive unnecessary overproduction of a podcast where we're talking about the most absurd, stupid things. We would go on tangents, or it would just be endless. It would be a video game show, but we would just digress off something, and we'd keep digressing for like half an hour, and we'd go from there. And it was just like, everyone's just bouncing off each other. And I thought, how do I like amplify this? How do I, while Zach's talking about dating pigeons on this video game, how do I make it more absurd? Okay, I'll put Tchaikovsky behind it. Like, it's literally that reference point from being a kid worshipping Ren and Stimpy and like hearing Flight of the Sugar Plum Fairies, or Swan Lake behind,
right. When they're getting their teeth pulled out or something.
Exactly. You're seeing exposed like nerves in
Like
Ren's
gums.
mouth, and like
Oh, yeah.
just like facial reactions from Stimpy, that kind of stuff set to Tchaikovsky. That is like what is so much of my brain is that energy, like of that the art resulting from that, and that's gaming cult started off as this like podcast, and it turned into an art project for me basically before I even realized it, and it just kept evolving, and I let it keep evolving. Once I realized I was all in for like, you know, fully post producing a show that was anywhere from 1.5 hours to 3 hours, I was like, right, I guess I'm all in. I guess I am spending 20 hours editing this thing and then scoring the entire thing as well, whether it be public domain romantic classical music, or the Sonic R soundtrack for the
Oh, of
Sega
course.
Saturn with Richard Jacques and TJ Day on vocals. Shouts out TJ Day. You made me aware of that. What was the other game? The Dreamcast game where they both teamed up again. You
Oh,
made me aware.
Sega GT
Yeah,
Racing.
Sega GT
GT
Racing.
Racing 2000.
You introduced me to that game, Jared. Sorry.
Did
Yeah,
I?
you did. You did. I didn't know
Wow.
that there was a volume 2 to the Sonic R collaboration.
Yeah,
Like,
the follow-up.
I love that soundtrack, by the way. Unironically, like
Wow,
at this
it's
point,
so good.
like it's just fantastic. It's like, yeah, Richard Jacques incredible. He did a lot. He did
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
on Jet Set Radio Future as well, and Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, and he's done movie
Oh,
scores now.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
sang like big
I
time
think he's won
stuff.
BAFTAs and
Yeah.
yeah, all kinds of things. As he should too, because he's brilliant. Shouts out to TJ Day as well. She used to be
Oh yeah.
in a house or a Euro techno group. I'm just trying to remember what they were. I'm sure it's on our Wikipedia. You can go ahead and look it up if you don't believe me. But I finished my digressing.
Okay. Yeah, I could totally hear that in her voice that she would be involved in that stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe you already answered this, but what would you say makes a good podcast stand out?
I don't know. It just you have to keep doing it, and at least when you first start, you have to keep doing it, and don't fit it into, make it malleable. Like I approach things from probably a pretty artistic kind of view as an artist, like where you can kind of like make anything, because I feel like podcasting it's still very set in the format of what it is, which is often just 1 to X amount of people talking with nothing in the background. And that's what most people want. I remember a lot of the most critical feedback that I received in the beginning and still receive today is I turned it off because there was music in the background. And that's fine. That's fine. A lot of people can't take that level of stimulation or I guess diversion from what they think a podcast is or is supposed to be. But it always has been like just a talking medium, but I came from radio as well, and I'm a musician, and I started to think I've got all these connections in the music industry from working for labels and being a musician and DJ for so long. Why don't I start incorporating that into the show? I'll start interview. This isn't really answering the question.
Is that how Cult Tracks came about?
Definitely. Yeah. I started interviewing. I thought I've got all my friends in music. Why don't I start getting them on the show? And I know as an artist, when you get interviewed by a lot of the musical press, you get asked the same especially if you're doing a press run, you get asked the same questions. You get asked the same 10
Right.
questions 50 times over. So I'm gonna get musicians on. I'm gonna get artists on, but I'm not gonna interview them about their music. I'm gonna interview them about video games.
Hmm.
And the interviews I got out of that were just so good because they were whether I knew them personally or not, they were so happy to be talking about something something else that they were passionate about. Because I would ask a lot of people, "What's your earliest video game memory?" And that immediately brings people back to like a nostalgic time, like a really special time, especially if they are hashtag gamers. You know, uh,
It's a universal
yeah,
thing.
like I just wanted to get good feelings out of people. Okay, here's what I think a lot of podcasts miss, and it does go into like parasocial relationship territory, which is what a lot of us experience. Me even like
Mm.
with any media we enjoy, even if it's on the internet, like, but you have to have some relatability. We don't have to, but I think that's what a lot of podcasts don't have is personability, friendliness, and sure, maybe people don't want that out of all their podcasts. Maybe they if you're after a history podcast or if you're after a true crime podcast, you're not going to want personability. You're going to want info dumps. You're going to
Mm.
want storytelling. But I just it's the same approach that I've always had in the music industry, which hasn't always been met with the best things. I don't network. I just want to make friends like anybody else does. Yeah, I just wanted the podcast to be a friend to people that it resonated with.
Mm.
And it did. It did. The people that listen to Gaming Cult like are very, very passionately attached to it. As am I. There is that parasocial layer there, but like I'm also attached to it as well, and I'm attached to the people that are attached to it. We never really took off in our 10 years, despite having massive guests on the show. I guess we were a niche that didn't need to be filled, but
Mm.
we carved out our own little identity or space, and it was a really friendly space and a safe space for the people that found it and yeah, held it as something special to them or a part of them or whatever it was. That's what I'm very grateful for. At the end of the day, a lot of games podcasts are very not utilitarian. What's the kind of word that I'm trying to find here? They're just very,
Personality driven.
yeah, personality driven, or they're there to give you the news and talk about the news. And
Mm.
you know I never wanted to hold back in letting the show go in a direction that it naturally wanted to go, which was chaos at a lot of points. It's yeah.
Yeah,
I could.
think
It's
there's a lot
something you
of
could
fun.
write a book on,
That's
really.
fair.
But you could write that book in a self-help kind of format. How to increase your business, how to increase your widen your optics, and How to Get Rich Without Even Trying. There's so many ways you could write that book. And I imagine has been written, but like, really, it was just a bunch for us. It was just a bunch of artists coming together.
So I think we need to head over to our musical break for the episode, and we'll be back with more following up later on GCP and beyond. And here's another track from DJ Innes, and it is called DJ Innes. That is right. It is self-titled track, and it is awesome. So, see you guys soon. Welcome back to Pixel Pizza. You just listened to DJ Innes by DJ Innes. And now we are here with DJ Innes, Jake Innes, talking more about the Gaming Cold podcast and what he's up to now and what he's gonna be up to and all sorts of cool stuff. So, yeah, how are you feeling now that it's over, Jake?
I'm not sure. I knew it was quite sudden when I knew the time was right to end it. It just felt right, like right on our 10th anniversary. We had our 10th anniversary, and I finally finished the episode, and we recorded it sometime in late October or something. But I was like, I had lots of things planned for it. Like, not even the rest of the crew knew that Lil B was gonna be on it.
Oh, right.
Like on it. He's been on the show like 3 or 4 times, but like he was really gonna be as on it as he could. We were even making plans like just right before we had Shalik Jenkins join Gaming Cult, and he still has joined Gaming Cult.
Hmm?
Gaming Cult is still gaming. I bought the name. Like I
Oh.
registered Gaming Cult the same time that I registered Cult Tracks, my record label. Yeah, I just knew, like, we released it, and it wasn't long after it just hit me. It's like, oh, it's done. And I just knew, like, that it was literally just that. It just hit. I just knew it was finished, and it was like it was done. It's such a strange thing to begin with, like making a body of work or an artistic statement in a collective body of work in a space where that isn't done.
Yeah, and it was such an enormous, prolific body of work too.
The podcasting space, synchronous. Yeah, no, podcasts aren't really considered art. Not, and like,
and yet there are all these new like subscription podcast services, premium, get the episodes 5 days or always. They're treating it like it's Netflix.
Right. Well, there's the full gamut, right? Like, of an entertainment medium, as there should be. But like, it's just like games weren't considered art, and we started having that conversation about 10 years ago.
Right. I remember when I started college, freshman year of college, which was also the year I discovered Gaming Cult. Was
right.
Yeah, like I had to do like a public speaking thing. And I could choose any subject, so I chose why video games are art.
Fantastic, yeah. That's the conversations I wanted to have to start Gaming Cult with as well. That was one of the main things that me and Martin wanted to make Gaming Cult about, was like that games are art.
Yeah,
you know, while talking about really obscure imports and technical stuff. Yeah, Sukiban Shachorena, exactly. I've got my copy just here. I'll show it to all the listeners.
Oh yeah, they'll love it.
Yeah, it's the lowest selling game of all time when it came out. Supposedly 100 copies of it were released or sold. Yeah, it's this Japanese Nintendo Wii game where you're a salaryman and one day you go to work and a cat is your boss. Yeah, Martin knew about Sukiban Shachorena, and he talked about it. And I immediately, while we were recording the podcast, went on eBay and bought the last copy that was on there and shipped it from Japan. Because, apparently 100 copies of this Japanese exclusive Wii game sold. It's like, I can't even play this thing. I haven't got a Japanese Wii, so then I like looks around Sydney to try and get a Japanese Wii, and one guy out in the Northern Beaches had one, which is where I live now. And I went and got it, and it had this weird hardware mod in it that I didn't know how to use, but I had a way to play Sukiban Shacho Rena.
Wonderful.
Boss Cat Rena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess Zach wasn't the first one to talk about bizarre games. It was definitely Martin.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Martin. I guess I don't talk about how much of a huge influence like Martin is on the show as the co-creator of Gaming Cult.
Is he doing well these days? What's he up to?
He is, yeah. He's someone that keeps to himself. And he's a great guy and just really funny. Like Zach, who I think is one of the funniest people in the world, always says Martin's the funniest person on the show. Yeah, Martin is like, I've never tried to even work Martin out because he has like, he has like, especially in the beginning, he had reservations to going into crude humor. We were the show was quite crass at times, like really crass, like, but in an absurdist way, like straight up data, like just talking about talking about dicks and farts.
Yeah, and I felt like he was
whatever.
So good as like the deadpan.
He was the straight man, right?
Yeah, the straight man, exactly.
So he was the straight man to bounce off, but he knew how to lean into it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jared. Actually, yeah, he was totally you got to have the straight guy to bounce off.
That's comedy of the straight man, and you have the different. I forget what the word is. I did improv they explained it to me, but
I'm definitely the other guy.
Interesting.
I'm definitely the. I'm definitely the other guy, and Martin's the straight man for sure.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta have the good straight guy, and Martin is the ultimate good straight guy. But he would just come out of nowhere with the funniest moments, like, and it would be like, and you wouldn't expect it from Martin as well, and that's what made it funnier. And I guess another thing I didn't talk about, beyond me talking about Gaming Cult being this body of work,
right,
and it being this art where art doesn't usually exist, so what place does it have? And a lot of people like pushed back against that through the years as well, just through not being their thing, and not understanding why there was music in the background or why we were digressing for 20 minutes. But the one thing that we wanted to make Gaming Cult about was that it was worldwide opinions.
That was what made it so interesting.
Which was the first. We were the first people to do that. Definitely, because that was a niche that we wanted to fill from the beginning. Was that every video game podcast was like either national or hyper local, but we wanted it to be in all languages. We wanted not English and Swedish, but we wanted to have segments in Japanese and Arabic, and we were really welcoming, because it's not just English speaking Western countries that enjoy gaming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we really just enjoyed the dynamic of a culture exchange, and it's only something I have to think about now, because it's not really a second thought to me as a third culture kid. You can look up the definition of that, but as someone that's moved around a lot, and that's another thing that sort of developed too. After a while, we realized that most of us on Gaming Cult were all neurodivergent in different ways, and some of us weren't as well. But that's another thing that I've only thought about in later years, is that how we are all basically neurodivergent. Few of us are autistic. I have developmental learning disabilities from a birth defect, from a brain, a bleed in my brain and frontal lobe damage from birth, and so I've had all kinds of things result from that. But a few other of our members are autistic as well, like Emily and Zach and Crystal, and and a lot of us are neurodivergent. This is not something I realized until maybe 2 years ago, and that also maybe kind of helped form our energy and the way that we bounce off each other.
Yeah, it's
it was a safe space for us as well. And also because I wanted to get my brother and sister involved in what I was doing, and just make friends and stuff. And I think that was actually a big part of it, that took me well into its ideas to realize, no, a lot of us are neurodivergent, and a few of us aren't, but yeah, we're definitely all different thinkers.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing that podcasts can do, is bring people together of all different circumstances and upbringings, and all sorts of representation is wonderful and important, and getting your voices out there it makes a difference.
It's something we never gave a second thought about either, really. Up until I was 35, I was a non-binary person, and Emily's a trans woman, and I've always platformed, black artists on our show, and given space for blackness as well, because I feel like, I'm saying this as a First Nations person, not a black person, but from a lot of conversations I've had with black friends or black people in the gaming space, like there's a lot of, to exist in these spaces, in gaming spaces or internet subculture spaces, a lot of these alternate geeky spaces, there's not a lot of room for blackness or queerness, gayness, however you want to put it, especially blackness though. Yeah, I found like black people really have to tone check themselves a lot of the time when they're in these spaces. And again, it's not something I've ever given much thought to until like recently in hindsight. I always wanted to have a lot of just things that haven't been given a lot of space or have been excluded from a lot of alternate communities or gaming community, geeky communities, all that kind of thing. Things are much better now. But like in 2012, I was going to gaming. I was going to gaming industry events in Australia, and people were openly making gay jokes, and I would just have to leave, or I'd cause a scene and I'd leave, and I'd be like, it'd be me the one that was causing the problem. We had a booth at PAX Australia 2013, the first PAX booth, and we were the first booth to have a pride flag. And it was only a tiny little A4 one, but that I printed out myself and put it there. But it meant such a great deal to the people that noticed it.
That's great. So now, I know you have some other projects you've been working on. You recently have been doing a lot with your own record label. You collaborated with Junya Nakano, composer of Final Fantasy X and many other classics. What was that like?
God, I still can't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was traveling around Japan in February 2020. I was playing a few shows, but I was just traveling, mostly for food tourism, Jared, to be very specific. I was eating my way around the Kansai region, and
Have
then I went
good unagi.
Oh my god, yes, I love unagi. But I went to Matsusaka and had Matsusaka beef, which is like the best beef in the world. And then I went to the forest and hung out with some deer who bow to you to try and get food.
Of course.
So Junya Nakano, I was listening to his album Phantasm on Spotify, and I'd bought his stuff on Bandcamp as well. As soon as I realized he was putting out solo albums, I was like, oh, wow, okay. And they were incredible, of course. That was my soundtrack for like traveling around Japan. I just had that in my headphones, walking around most of the Kansai region, down to Fukuoka, down to Kagoshima for a day. And when I moved back here and I told myself I'd never start collecting records again, but I started buying records again when I moved into the place I'm in now. Sort of got settled, got a couple of cats, and I found myself buying records. And before I knew it, I took Cult Tracks, which was originally a promotional Bandcamp tie-in label with Gaming Cult, where we put out Gaming Cult Tracks Volume 1 in 2013, which was like this 35-track compilation with all kinds of artists, footwork, ballroom, electronic, experimental, hip-hop, everything, all kinds of stuff. All mostly exclusive tracks as well. That came out 2014. I spent most of 2013 working on it. It took me a year to put that together. I turned that into a proper label and started putting out vinyl releases. I put one of my releases out. I put a DJ Row EP out. This is Cult Tracks. You can go to culttracks.com, culttrax.com. There's my plug. I managed to get that in. And then I'm like, I could just write to him. I could just, why not? There's other specifically game soundtracks that I'm trying to license to release, which I've just been trying to figure out how to approach in the proper way. But Junya Nakano, who had done like Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy IV DS, Final Fantasy X, 10x2 remastered arrange, Do Prism, which is my favorite work of his, also known as Threads of Fate in the West, Project Sylpheed on the 360, so much work. And he was a member of the Konami Kukeiha Club sound team in the early 90s as well. That's where he started. So I was like, he's doing all the solo work. Why don't I just go on his website and send him a message through his contact page? So I did that, and he replied, and he was really into it. Wow. What I was doing with Cult Tracks, and even the minimalist packaging design, like partnered with really high fidelity vinyl production mastering with this guy Mike Papas, who I'm working with, who's like an industry veteran of 50 years, working with like Neumann Lathes and everything. Like, he's one of the guys that like people at Abbey Road Studios go to for advice.
Wow.
He's in semi-retirement at the moment because he's going through chemo, and that's been. I really hope he gets better soon. Yeah. He's a good friend of mine. But yeah, I managed. We managed to put out 4 records in 2021 together, and along with the avant-garde group in Japan called Satanic Porno Cult Shop, who have been around for about 20 years. I put a record of theirs out as well. A 13-minute album, and it is an album. We decided that it would be an album, and it would be funny to call it an album. So it is officially a 13-minute album. I don't know if that makes it the shortest album in the world, but it's called Screen Block, and you can check it out on Cult Tracks. This is all physical releases only, so you go to culttracks.com and you can buy the vinyl there. Junya Nakano has self-released Phantasm on streaming services and Bandcamp, but for a physical version, you can come to me for that exclusively. Yeah, he was just really great to work with, and was up for all the ideas. Loved, like, I was working directly with the Final Fantasy X composer, the Final Fantasy X composer, and well, Nobuo Uematsu worked on it as well as Masashi Himazu as well. Like,
that's true. Was a big
there's
team.
There's the holy trinity there, like Masashi Himazu. The Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 soundtrack is not only my favorite video game soundtrack, but it's like my favorite work of music of all time. It's just he's just that's his masterwork in my opinion. Is
My
Final Fantasy
favorite game
13.
soundtrack is Chrono Cross, and they're
Oh,
doing
that's great! I love Chrono
remaster
Cross.
of it next week, and there's going to be like for the
That's
first
right.
time uncompressed versions of the songs, and I'm so excited.
Well, I've actually got the CD soundtrack for Chrono
Oh
Cross.
yeah, me too. But I
Yeah.
mean, these are like further like refined versions of the song, I think.
Oh, they're doing arranges? Oh my
Yeah.
god. Okay. I love that. Like there's all these really great ranges of like some of the Chrono Trigger soundtrack in the Chrono Cross
Oh yeah.
soundtrack as well. Like that one that goes do 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 do.
Yeah, they had like the
do,
sitar
do.
playing it. It's so
Yes,
cool.
yes, that's like my favorite. That's like my favorite track on the Chrono
Yes,
Cross soundtrack.
that's
I've never
amazing.
played the game. I've never even played the game. So that's why I'm doubly excited
Oh yeah.
for the re-release. Oh my
It's
goodness! But like, so yeah, that's how Phantasm came to be, and he did a whole new mix for it, like a mix down for the vinyl edition, and we rearranged the track order slightly so it would fit vinyl better, so we could press each side of the record as loud as possible and dynamically as possible. Yeah, a lot of that stuff matters. Like that was like learning a whole new skill set, like mastering vinyl and pressing it to the best fidelity possible, working with one of the best guys possible. Like, did I get like a crash course in that unique skill set in the last year? But yeah, that's how, and now we're friends. I found myself getting into tabletop gaming this year, and it's been fantastic for me as someone with social anxiety. Just getting out and being somewhere that's friendly and just at an energy level that's a solid 5, unlike like being an artist and being in the music industry where everything's like very like 0 to 10 and back again. But that's just the nature of the industry and profession and lifestyle. But yeah.
So when you're out,
Yeah.
you're out, where is your favorite pizza place to go to?
Oh, yes. Pixel Pizza.
That's right.
There is a place. So there's two grades of pizza, right? I think there's the cheap and the cheerful, which is Domino's, and that's its own thing. And I love Domino's. I love getting just like, I always need to have pineapple on my pizza, and I'll have a barbecue sauce base, and yeah, just give me thin crust pepperoni with pineapple on a barbecue base, and that's me happy. But that's Domino's. That's like something you get for like $5 to $10, and it makes you very happy. But there's a place near me at the moment called Valentino's that does this pizza with a stuffed ricotta cheese crust.
Ricotta crust. Wow.
Yeah, with really nice Parma ham and fresh garlic, and I think olives and onion. Onion is a very like not caramelized onion, but fresh, like cooked like in the oven onion, like red onion is a very underrated pizza topping.
Oh, for sure.
And of course pineapple, because I add pineapple to everything. I am the pineapple on pizza guy. It's you either are or you're not. Jared, are you a pineapple on pizza guy, Jared?
I mean, I'm cool with it. I don't like jump at the chance to get it, but I won't.
Okay. You're not going out of your way for it.
Exactly.
You're not paying that extra $1 for that pineapple.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that's my favorite slice at the moment is the Valentino's special. Where are they based? North Narrabeen or Cromer in Sydney's Northern Beaches. Yeah, that stuffed ricotta crust, baby. That's what it's all about.
That sounds fantastic.
Also, there's a place called Giorgio's that do aroma pie, which is just tomato. It's just a tomato base pizza with a bit of fresh basil and a bunch of garlic in it. No cheese.
Ooh. Anything
It's just-
with basil and garlic, those are the best.
It's just a tomato Roma pie with San Marzano
Ooh.
tomatoes. Tomato. Like I'm trying to be palatable to Americans here.
No, don't worry about it.
I
This
do
is-
say tomato, I'm afraid. I don't know. My accent's all over the place too, from having lived in Holland and the UK and Australia back and forth. But yeah, no, that's my other, that Roma pie there, which is just tomato, no cheese, no nothing, just tomato and garlic.
Those are good.
It's got to be the best quality San Marzano though. Mamma mia.
Well, we could go on about pizza and video games and everything forever. I know
Sourdough
we always
crust.
can find
Don't get
stuff
me
to talk about, but
Started on sourdough crusts either. Like, oh my goodness.
That's true. Sourdough, so good. But we do need to be packing it up now. So, Jake, where can people keep track of your latest happenings?
Jared, this has been so fun. I mean, we've been
Yes.
friends for such a long time.
It's true.
I've been following your shows as long as you've been following mine. I've been following you since the Game Boys.
Yeah.
With
The
you
Boston
and
Game
James. Like,
That's right. We
Like,
both
you got-
started with James's. I didn't realize that.
that's right, we did. I didn't realize that either. How
Yeah.
about that? Yeah, shouts out to James Collins and
James
and,
Johnston.
yeah, James Johnston, shouts out. Yeah, no, I used to listen. I think, did we start at the same time, like the beginning of 2012? Yeah,
Yeah,
it had to be around the same time. Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
Like you were doing the Game Boys
That's right.
in Boston, and I loved that show. So like, yeah, we've been friends for so long,
It's crazy.
and fans of each other's work.
Yeah.
And no, I remember when we were last hanging out in New York in 2015. And that was my first time in New York, and you were showing me around. You took me to a pizza place. I was very appreciative.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to Nintendo World. You took me to Nintendo World, man. That meant so much to me. Like seeing that that Game Boy that had been like
destroyed in the war.
survived the Gulf War or
that's
whatever
incredible.
it was. Yeah, I mean the context of it is so grim, obviously, but the fact that the AC adapter and the DC adapter, whatever it is, still works.
Right. It's really.
But no, just seeing all the relics, that was like, among the things that I wanted to do in the 72 hours that I was in New York City for the first time, like hanging out with you. And yeah, God, we went to Nintendo World. You made me very happy that day.
That was so special. So thanks again for joining me, Jake.
But yes, culttracks.com, and you can also check out. You asked me for the links, right? I get my plugs in. I'll get my plugs in real quick.
Yeah, just get them in real quick.
So I do a show called House Nation. I do a show called OST, Original Soundtrack, where I play nothing but video game music off original CDs and vinyl exclusively, live on FM radio through the same 40-year equipment that I started off with at 12. Like the same desks, the same mixing board, everything. So there's this really warm sound to it on Radio Northern Beaches, 88.7, 90.3 FM, or you can listen to it live online on rnb.org.au or on the TuneIn app. Just search Radio Northern Beaches under local stations for Sydney, Australia. I also archive all of episodes of both the shows with downloads turned on my SoundCloud. So go to soundcloud.com/DJ Innes, INNES. My Instagram's at DJ_Innes and at Cult Tracks. And you can also find Gaming Cult Podcast and listen to the 10 years of it wherever you find podcasts, or at gamingcult.org. Go to Gaming Cult, go to at Gaming Cult Cast on Twitter, or at Cult Tracks on Twitter, or at Cult Tracks on Instagram. Look up the Facebook pages for DJ Innes and
All right.
Cult
I will-
Tracks as well. That's with an
Okay,
X.
That's all in the Cult Tracks with an X.
CULTTRAX. There, I got my plugs in. I'm very good at doing the plugs.
Yeah, you plugged them all in real quick.
But I was saying we've known each other for so long. I feel like we could just talk for
I know. We could go on for like
8
longer than a
hours.
GCP episode.
Right. Well, thank you for having me on your show again.
Absolutely.
I was on
anytime.
Pixel Pizza when you were doing it on college radio as well.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, live. And that was so much fun.
That
Jared,
was-
you're good. You've always been a true friend, and I love you very much.
As
Thank
have
you for having me
Jake.
on your show. I still,
Anytime.
throughout this whole show, haven't managed to switch off interviewer mode.
It's all good. So we'll leave you off,
But no-
listeners, with a final one of Jake's tracks, and that is Let Go. And
Thank you.
thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.